So, Mackie and Judd here, daily Minnesota sports entertainment. And last night, my friend Brady Farkas, who does radio up in Vermont, and he is part of a podcast called, I believe it's called the the Elevate O2 podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And they had Torey Mitchell, former Wild player, like 2-year run with the Wild, like 2012, 13 into 14. And Dex is going to play this clip. I'm just going to say we've all kind of thought, and now there's more stories that have come out since Suter and Parise have left, like the Wild franchise really catered, like overly catered to these two guys. Here's a great example of the Wild franchise catering to Parise and Suter several years ago.
Just a specific story. I'm thinking back of when I was in Minnesota, and Parise and Suter come in, and they bought houses in this town called Edina, and they liked when we practiced at Edina instead of the game rink, which Minnesota is unique. The game rink is also your practice facility. They said, well, because the Edina High School rink is open, we'd like to practice there. And they lived like 5 minutes away. So halfway through the season, we're practicing in Edina High School like 3 days a week. That's the power they had early on. And then there's rumblings in the locker room, like these guys are basically running the team now. Mm-hmm. What is this? What about us? What about the foot soldiers? So there's a weird dynamic there. You want to cater to your top guys, but you don't want to expose yourself, I don't think, as a GM or an owner.
Wow. Okay, Jim, what do you make of that?
Well, one, I knew that. In fact, Zach and I think Ryan too, but Zach for sure. So they both bought I think they both bought lake houses. So Zach had the place that he sold or tried to sell a couple of years back in Orono. And then they both bought houses in Edina to be closer to St. Paul, but then decided that they could practice at Braemar. And so, and that's why, because the country club got to be, if you can't beat them, join them. Eric Stahl moved to Edina. So so as many guys as possible made this as simple on themselves. But this all goes back to the problem was right before those contracts got signed, they had hired Mike Yeo as coach. And Yeo was hired as coach from the Houston team back then, the affiliate in the American Hockey League, to bring along the young players. And so then they bring Zach and Ryan in, who are dominant veterans given these huge contracts. And that's where it went sideways, where they're like, we're going to run this entire team. So the problems that Torey Mitchell just documented there are the tip of the iceberg of why these two became so despised and why nobody had a leg to stand on who said, you don't get it. Like all of this stuff was getting out and it was maddening. And it is as unconducive to trying to win in sports as you can possibly get.
So why didn't, ultimately, was it a Mike Yeo, Chuck Fletcher, like the decision to move practice from the main facility, which is, they practice at the X, right?
It was the X at the time. They now have the Tria rink, right?
Yeah.
Downtown St. Paul. But at the time it was the X, and their original practice home, to be fair, this place was a piece of work, was Parade Ice Gardens. So like they were practicing on the west end of town originally. And then I think Zach and Suter were just like, let's put it right by our house.
Yeah. So, I mean, but was it a Mike Yeo decision? Was it Leopold? Who decides, okay, yeah, we're going to go the next step and just cater to these guys and hold practice in Edina?
Don't forget, Ryan Suter purposely and because he's a smart dude, went and became best friends with Craig. So Ryan basically would go above Chuck's head to get what he thought was best. And so like Chuck became a puppet. And Yeo was a puppet for sure. I mean, these guys literally brought in Adam Oates during the offseason without telling the team to work on power play fundamentals that they were then sharing with teammates essentially behind Yeo's back. And they didn't care. Like, think about that for a second. We're not talking a shooting coach. We're not talking about going to get some personal instruction. The power play is a team-run system.
So they had multiple guys, like they were making up a power play unit of teammates and working with an outside consultant, basically.
They were going to bring in their ideas for what they thought was a better power play than what the team ran. But I mean, that would be like if Cat went and got an offensive coach and privately said, "I want you to install a system for us."
So why and why not go through the team if you're? And I'm asking a bunch of maybe questions that you don't know the answer to, but like if you're Suter in that spot, why don't you say, "Hey, Yosi, I think Adam Oates can really help our power play. I'd love to get the guys together and maybe we spend a couple days with him." Like, did he do that? And Yo and Fletcher were like, "No, we're not bringing Adam Oates on." He said, "Well, screw it, I'm going to do it on my own." Or does he just go rogue?
Well, you're not. Yeah, I mean, I think that you would have to go rogue because that would be like Cousins, Thielen, and Jefferson going and hiring Sean McVay. Let's say he got fired by the Rams.
Well, they should. The Vikings should hire Sean McVay if he's
fired. But let's say they don't, and then coming and saying, we got some ideas here. Sean McVay told us. It's just these two went rogue as much as possible. They ran the entire show, and listen, Koivu didn't help. Like this is the whole thing that Dex and I were talking about for years here. Mikko Koivu was one of the most ineffective captains of all time. Everybody was out for themselves. And like this, well, he's a stoic Finn. He's a stoic Finn who's out for himself. Look at guys like Foligno now, right? And look at guys, and this is one of the reasons why Bill Guerin last year brought in Bonino and Cole was to purge the locker room. It was literally like Parise and Suter vaccine. That's what that was. Like they had to vax the team against these two because these two were so influential and divisive. Like I can't tell you how much they essentially turned a lot of that room into a cesspool. Like I'm not convinced that Coyle and Granlund and Zucker and that whole crew wouldn't have developed if they had different teammates.
Yeah, God, it's so interesting because I think it was painted differently. I know, like we talked about this quite a bit, and you always had intel to sprinkle in throughout our show, but it always felt like largely Suter and Parise were just held in such high regard, right? The media, the fans, and not that they have to be remembered as cancers because I think there's a middle ground here. I mean, they did help this franchise get to the playoffs on a regular basis, but that story from Torey Mitchell. And he's not just speaking on his own, "Oh, this is what I think." Like he's speaking on behalf of everyone else in the locker room that also thought it was weird that the team was catering to those players so much. So how much? I mean, so the Wild here they sit. I just saw they shuffled lines this morning too, which we can talk about. But they're second in the Central in points right now. They haven't come anywhere near. And correct the hockey whisperer if he's wrong here. They haven't come anywhere near playing their best hockey, yet they sit 10-5, and they've got the second most points in the Central. So let me ask you guys this, and we can talk about this year's team. What do you think are the biggest differences in the post-Parise Suter era so far?
Speed. Definitely speed. They are not as slowed and bogged down as they used to be with the Stalls and Koivu and Parise and Suters of the world. They're allowing their young players to have voices. There's an off the ice different characteristic about them that I think is different. There's just a mantra that's different, which is too bad that we can't go in the locker room yet. They still give players in post-game access, but when Judd and I would go in that locker room and keep in mind, I'm a younger guy. Judd's been around more locker rooms than I've ever been. It wasn't even very hard for me to tell something seems off in this room. When it was Parise and Suter and Stahl and Koivu, something just didn't seem right. It felt weird. It felt like walking on eggshells. Guys were afraid to say things. Veterans really never told you much of anything. It just felt off. It seems to me that with Foligno and Dumba as alternate captains, that they're raising those guys' voices. Like Dumba, if you would have said 2 or 3 years ago, hey, by 2021, Matt Dumba's going to be an alternate captain, I would have said, what? There's no chance in hell Matt Dumba would be considered a leader in that room. But Matt Dumba's matured, and that room, it lifts him up, and he also lifts up the other players in that room, that there's a different vibe around them. In terms of on-the-ice product, yeah, I think mostly speed and just natural skill. but this team still does lack a true number one center. They haven't played their best hockey, but they're still getting points, which is important. You're approaching the point in the NHL season where if you're in the top 8 by Christmas time, I think it's like a 75% lock that you'll be in the postseason. Elliot Friedman had the stat yesterday that if you're outside the top 8 by Thanksgiving time in the U.S., you only have like a 15% chance to be in the postseason by the end of the year. It really is that kind of weird how that works. If you get off to a hot start in the NHL, you're going to be in good position to make the playoffs. But I think speed and just natural skill, if they can find a true number one center, and it might be down with Marco Rossi, who's tearing it up in Iowa. He has 11 points in 9 games. It might be internal there, but they have to figure out something to get Kaprizov and Fiala too going more.
Kaprizov, I think thus far, and it's what, Dex, 15 games in, it's not that far in, has been a massive disappointment. He is, so Fiala's stats aren't that impressive, and he still makes mistakes, but he's doing his job. Like he is actively engaged. Kaprizov, again, against the Sharks, I don't know what's up, but I mean, he didn't back check. In fact, the first goal was partially his fault. He has not been even close to the guy that he was. And we love the theme of, well, he's a superstar. He's being focused on now. One, as Dean pointed out post-game after the Sharks game, he was focused on about 15 games into last year. Because like once you prove to be good, it's not like, oh, let's ignore him till next year. The other thing is every superstar is focused on. That's why you get paid superstar money. So he's got to come around. But the thing that I like about this team that the previous teams didn't have is basketball and football in particular have positions at which being selfish is almost okay. And it's certainly not seen as like if you have a receiver who's really good, he can be an oddball and selfish and a me first guy, and he's not going to divide things. Hockey's one sport where there's not really a position at which you can be a raging a-hole and be fine. Like you're either going to be called out for it or you're going to become a massive problem. And so the thing that I like about this team now is as poorly as Kaprizov is playing, and I don't know the first thing about him as a human being, but this locker room is not going to tolerate him taking a star turn, which was the problem previously, because the way that Zach and Ryan acted, it was really hard to like discipline players and be like, well, you can't act like them, but they can. That's not how this sport works. So the one good thing is that I don't think they're going to have a problem with guys becoming problems as far as off the ice.
Yeah. Interesting. So I don't know. Go check out if you want to hear more from Torey Mitchell, the Elevato 2 podcast is where he pulled that clip from, and that interesting story about coddling Parise and Suter. All right, every Thursday we also go into the archives. Declan finds incriminating tweets. It's old tweets exposed, presented by Federated Mutual Insurance Company. If you are a business owner out there and you're looking for just a better partner in terms of risk management and frontline protection, protecting your bottom line, protecting your employees, Federated is here to help you. Tons of tools and resources and people. Find out more at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. Declan.
All right. Old tweets exposed. After so much talk of Tanner Morgan and Gopher football quarterbacks, I figured I'd go into the archives
Good.
see what was said
Good work, Declan.
about Tanner Morgan.
No.
Judd, you are first to the stand.
Oh, yeah. I deserve what I'm going to get here.
These Gopher wide receivers are incredible, but Tanner Morgan also keeps making the throws. Morgan deserves a ton of credit. November 8th, 2019.
Okay. I got a feeling that Phil has won about like a first round pick status, and so I feel pretty good about this one because at the time this was true. I was a little bit concerned that I might have thrown some draft pick credit.
I'll tell you. I think can I call my shot here?
Yeah.
I think because I remember I was just bathing in Gopher Kool-Aid that season because that's the most fun Gopher football season of my life. I almost feel like it's unfair to ask anything else for another 10 years. Just like they gave us a New Year's Day bowl win over Auburn. They beat an undefeated Penn State team.
Unbelievable.
The fans rushed the field. Like it was so much fun. And I remember at some point in the hoopla of that season, I tweeted something about how Tanner Morgan, the Gophers have been looking for like a leader, I don't know. I don't know what Dex has in store,
was
but
not
I
gonna be
basically
good.
said like he's the best Gopher quarterback of my life, like a great leader or something.
2 tweets. October 26, 2019. Tanner Morgan is playing more confident than any Gopher
There you go.
quarterback I
There
can
it is.
remember.
I remember tweeting that.
That's accurate at the time.
1985, by the way, in parentheses. And then I feel like most Gopher quarterbacks are just nervous
Yes!
wrecks who sail passes. Not Tanner Morgan. Helps have multiple future wide receivers to throw to.
All right. I don't even know what Declan's tweet's going to be, but that's second one right there. How would you describe Tanner Morgan this year? As a nervous wreck who sails
nervous
passes,
wreck
right?
sails passes.
Yes. Yes. You did it, Phil. This is all your fault.
How dare you guys pick on him? He's just a college kid, okay? Leave him alone. He's a good kid. Leave him alone.
Okay,
He's a great
Dex.
kid, but he's not good at quarterback. I'm a
All right,
great
Dex.
guy, but I don't play quarterback.
What you got?
All right, so I obviously go Huskies, St. Cloud State. I don't have a whole lot of Gopher incriminating tweets, shockingly. But I did find this one from a Gopher quarterback take. It doesn't have to do with Tanner Morgan. It's a quote tweet from Brian Kupito. I'm not a big Gopher football guy, but Kalik was a baller, super fun to watch. And it's a picture of Ryan Kupito saying, great seeing the former star Gopher quarterback, Asad Abdul Kalik. 2003 was the best year of any quarterback in the last 20 years. And it's a picture of these two.
I love
and I
it.
tweeted this. When did I tweet this?
I don't know that I would
August
call-
2019.
I don't think it's that incriminating. It's an interest. I'm glad you brought it to the table here. I think it shows just how low our bar
Yeah.
is for what a star Gopher quarterback is. That the guy who handed off 50 times a game to 3 NFL running backs is considered like the gold star
guy.
quarterback of Gopher
Can I-
football. It's
The guy.
Can I suggest that for the first time in Old Tweets Exposed, the person that wins is not on the screen right now? Brian Kupito might have just won.
Oh,
He called Asad Abdul Khalik a star, and Chip's friends with him, so I can have Chip call him. But I mean, he might have just won.
So again, and Asad Abdul Khalik was a really good quarterback. He also
He's
threw
fine.
a devastating pick 6 in that 2003
In that
game
Michigan
against
game.
Michigan
But
in the
star?
second half. But yeah, he threw. In his senior year, 2003, he threw. Let's see here, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. But the 2003 Gopher football team literally had 3 NFL running backs. Well, one was a fullback, Thomas DePay, and then they had Lawrence Maroney and Marion Barber. So Thomas DePay, just crazy eyes.
What?
Hey, Judd.
What foot? My foot.
Yeah, the coach just the coach just told us about your the foot surgery that you're about to
Yeah.
have. It looks
The
like you're on
amputation.
crutches. My foot's not sore at all.
You,
But
like
you're in a
Stewie
walking
Griffin.
boot.
but yeah. Oh, it was super. It was like, okay, you're a
Who
fullback.
told you that?
This isn't worth the conversation. I don't want to be injured. Yeah, I think Kupito wins. That's
Dude,
the most remarkable thing I've ever seen.
The Gophers in
Star.
2003 had 2,000-yard rushers,
Oh God, yeah.
and then they also had Thomas DePay, who ran for 5 yards a carry and almost 600 yards. Hell, Asad Abdul Khalik ran for almost 400 yards that season. So, yeah, I think all right, Brian Kupito wins.
right.
It's incredible. That's a great tweet. Oh my gosh.
Oh, nervous and sailing passes. Yeah. All right. Well, that's your reckless speculation. Actually, you know what? We got a couple minutes here. Declan, do you want to throw out? You want to save it? You want to save it? You have a reckless speculation Vikings idea. Should we? That might be something we save for next
I
week.
think we saved because I want a longer runway for it.
Okay.
I do.
I've got one quickly that I read this morning that I think it's Vikings, but it can be a brief conversation.
Reckless speculation.
Thrown out in a mailbag column done by Chad Graff,
Wow.
The Athletic. Phil broached this yesterday, but he didn't broach what Graff did, which is same people, different positions. What would you think of Mason Cole staying at center and Garrett Bradbury being moved to right guard? Chad Graff, not me,
Why would?
threw that out there.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, did Bradbury play guard in college at NC State?
I don't think so.
I thought he was a center only, but I'm just
Well,
saying
we know
Graff
he's
might
a
have
bad
gotten that
center.
thought, and Graff might have gotten that from somebody. Like that could be reckless speculation through sources.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think
I don't think you just throw
Guys
it
like
out.
Graf are strategically gathering information and then
Correct.
disseminating it, right?
Correct, and it looks like their own idea, but it might have come from inside.
Well, we know that Bradbury is a bad center, so I think we've gone probably a little too far. Like Mason Cole hasn't been a total train wreck, and so lock him up, 5-year extension.
Right.
Mason Cole might not be a good center either, but he's had a couple games that are just better than train wreck.
Yeah.
So, and as Alex Boone pointed out 2 weeks ago, he also missed a huge ID at the line of scrimmage on that 3rd and 9 that caused the blitz to get home. And
Yep.
but if the starting point is you got to upgrade the center spot because that's where everything starts with Kirk Cousins. He needs more help at that position, and then figure out your guards. I guess I would be down for experimenting. And Oli Udoh is second in the NFL in penalties among guards too. So he's grabby and
He's gone train wreck, right?
it's pretty
Like
bad.
I feel
pretty bad.
like when you grab as much as he does and you basically sabotage plays
It's
that
bad.
you are if you're not a complete train wreck, you're going train wreck.
Yep. I think. Well, let's put it this way:
It was an interesting thought.
if they don't play Mason Cole, if he just sits on the bench, it's a huge. I'm not gonna say a huge mistake because he's not freaking. He's not Matt Burke in his prime. But like, find a way to get this offensive line is not very good. Mason Cole has been a breath of fresh air for the most part the last couple of years. So either find a place for him at guard or center, and then figure the rest out. So I like Chad Graff.
Reckless
I do
speculation.
think Mason Cole starts again on Sunday, so I think they're going to leave him there.
Yeah.
I just don't see how.
Well,
he's
didn't
not-
Kirk Cousins say that Bradbury was running with the ones in practice?
Yeah,
yesterday?
but the Star Tribune reported today that Cole appeared to work with the starting group during an offensive line drill in the portion of practice open. So Cousins might have, and I don't trust Kirk. Like, there's a good chance that Kirk was told.
Is Cousins
yeah,
putting up a center smoke screen?
just say, well, these guys will lie. If you allow
we
them
might
to,
we might use two centers.
Yeah.
You don't know who's gonna have the
It's
ball.
not. Hey, Phil. It's not Wednesday. It's not Thursday
Speculation.
day. It's Saturday. No, Judd. It's Thursday. It's Saturday. You don't understand. It's Saturday.
My foot's fine.
Yeah.
But you're in a wheelchair
But
with a walking boot.
Thomas,
know
they
what you're talking about.
chopped your foot off. Yeah, that's why it's fine. It's good. I'm good.
Did
to
they
go
amputate
Sunday.
your entire left leg? My foot's fine. Who told you? Who told you it was sore?
Anyway, I'm just saying Mason Cole has to start at center. I'm convinced he has to.
Get your feedback Friday questions in through the SKOR North app for tomorrow's show. We make the Friday show entirely about you guys and your questions, comments, critiques, whatever, and Judd's keys tomorrow. And don't forget daily Vikings conversations on Purple Daily. SKOR North app is a central hub for everything we do. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm Mackie and Judd. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday.
Reckless speculation.